Every analyst told you the same story. Canada would do what Canada always does, fall in line, pick the predictable platform, let the world move on without ever asking a single hard question about what that dependency actually costs. That was the assumption. That was the safe bet, the one everyone had already priced in, the one nobody thought worth arguing about anymore. Then Sweden made an offer nobody predicted, and in one quiet, calculated move, the entire fighter jet narrative in this country flipped on its head. This is not a story about procurement. This is a story about a nation quietly deciding who it wants to be. Dear viewers, to understand why this shift is so strategically explosive, we have to look at the psychological burden Canada has carried inside North American defense architecture for generations. The unwritten rule was simple: pick the predictable platform, accept the foreign maintenance schedules, accept the foreign software controls, and call it the price of admission to the Continental Defense Club. A mindset of subordination. Security rented, never owned. A quiet arrangement so old that questioning it started to feel almost unpatriotic, so entrenched that an entire generation of policymakers simply inherited it without ever examining its foundations. Sovereign resolve doesn't always announce itself with press conferences. Sometimes it waits. It calculates in silence while everyone else assumes the outcome is already settled, while everyone else has already moved on to the next story, certain there was nothing left to decide. And then Sweden arrived, not with a transaction, but with an architectural transformation. Not just fighter jets. The capability to build them in Canada, maintain them in Canada, control them fully on Canadian soil, under Canadian hands. Read that again. This was not a sales pitch. It was a blueprint for aerospace independence, and blueprints like this do not arrive twice in a generation. They arrive once, quietly, and either a nation reaches for them or watches the moment pass. If Canada, the most integrated, most historically compliant partner in North American air defense, accepts this shift, the unquestioned dominance of a single supplier across NATO begins to crack. Not collapse, fracture, the first one. And fractures, once they appear, do not simply seal themselves back up. They spread along the lines of least resistance, exposing everything the original structure was built to hide. Let's go deeper. Layer 1, the psychology of the Arctic itself. The Canadian North isn't just geography, it's identity, and it is the ultimate test of resolve. Vast, remote, brutally cold, a landscape that can kill you before an adversary ever gets the chance. For decades, air power doctrine leaned on centralized, heavily defended bases. But centralized infrastructure is the first target in any peer conflict. That's a psychology of vulnerability, a reliance on long, exposed logistics chains that can be severed in a single strike, a single well-placed blow against a runway that took years to build. The Gripen E was built for exactly the opposite doctrine. Dispersion, highways, frozen airstrips, small austere hangars scattered across the far north. Survivability doesn't come from the thickest armor. It comes from never being where the enemy expects you. Small, mobile, autonomous units disappearing into the landscape between sorties. Ghosts in the Arctic, present everywhere and pinned down nowhere. For a nation with more coastline and empty horizon than almost anywhere on Earth, that isn't a footnote. That's the entire point. It matches the quiet, enduring character of the country itself. This is also why Sweden needed a partner exactly like Canada. When Sweden joined NATO, its strategic calculus shifted overnight. It needed to prove its domestic defense industry could stand as a global pillar, not a regional curiosity. And it needed an ally with vast exposed northern territory and an urgent need for resilient, sovereign air power. Two nations, both accustomed to living beside massive military powers, both understanding that alliances must be balanced against the strict preservation of national autonomy, both searching for leverage against single-source dependency, both recognizing in the other exactly what had been missing. Layer 2, the technology. For years, the narrative insisted only one platform could deliver real fifth-generation data fusion and situational awareness. The Gripen E quietly dismantles that claim. A new infrared search and track system detects stealth aircraft passively, with no radar signature given away. An electronic warfare suite built to jam advanced sensors. The Meteor missile, extending beyond visual range reach past its rivals. Pilots can scramble from a cold start in 10 minutes, off a snowy highway, into intercept position before a threat penetrates deep into sovereign airspace. A response measured in minutes, not hours. And the cost? Maintenance runs at roughly 1/4 of the F-35. In strategic terms, cost is capability. A grounded jet waiting on foreign spare parts isn't an air force. It's a museum exhibit, expensive to look at and useless in a crisis. Affordability translates directly into sortie generation, continuous patrols, and genuine Arctic sovereignty. The ability to dictate your own operational tempo without checking a foreign ledger first. Layer 3, and this is the masterstroke, industrial resurrection. This is the country that designed the Avro Arrow, a nation with a near genetic understanding of advanced aerospace engineering, sidelined for decades into building components for someone else's vision. That sidelining was its own quiet tragedy, a slow erosion of ambition dressed up as fiscal prudence. Sweden's offer includes technology transfer at a scale rarely extended by any single ally. Full access to source code, to the electronic warfare threat library, to the maintenance schedule itself. When an adversary shifts radar frequencies, Canadian engineers rewrite the software overnight, on Canadian soil, on their own timeline. Not access, ownership. It tells the next generation of Canadian engineers they no longer need to leave the country to work at the edge of military technology, that the frontier of aerospace innovation can exist at home. The reaction beyond Canada's borders has been immediate. If this shift takes hold, NORAD becomes a dual fleet system. Not every aircraft built by the same supplier, not every system controlled by the same hand. That kind of quiet leverage built over decades through control of software and supply chains is nearly impossible to claw back once it's gone. Influence like that is not lost in a single dramatic moment. It simply stops being renewable. And a Canadian-built Gripen fleet does something else entirely. It creates a rival industrial hub capable of handling training, maintenance, and upgrades for the wider hemisphere. Not a competitor an ocean away. A sovereign industrial power standing shoulder to shoulder as an ally on its own terms, inside the very hemisphere that once assumed uncontested dominance. This is strategic patience in its purest form. No ultimatums, no confrontation thrown across a border. Just a structurally superior, more respectful offer, allowed to surface at its own pace, mistaken by some for indecision, right up until the moment it solidifies into policy. The ripple effects are already spreading. The Netherlands, Denmark, Belgium, Finland, Spain, all watching to see whether a G7 nation, a NORAD cornerstone, has the will to break the mold. Once questions about sovereignty and dependency are spoken aloud in one capital, they echo in every parliament in Europe. Russia is watching because the Gripen E was built from its inception to counter exactly the doctrine along its own northern approaches. China is watching because every crack in a single industrial monopoly is a data point in a longer historical equation. Proof that dominance assumed decades ago cannot simply be assumed to last forever if it stops respecting the needs of the partners it depends on. But beneath the geopolitics is something more human. For too long, procurement has been treated as pure transaction, stripped of the people who build and fly these machines. Being treated as a permanent consumer rather than a creator breeds something like institutional learned helplessness. Sweden's offer is, at its core, a statement of respect, that true security isn't built by stripping a partner of agency, and that a nation's defense is ultimately made of people, not spreadsheets. Imagine a pilot at a remote Arctic outpost, strapping into a cockpit built by their own citizens, maintained by their own neighbors, controlled entirely by their own chain of command. There is a psychological comfort in that trust, knowing the jet was not delayed by a distant bureaucracy debating software release authorizations on someone else's schedule. That trust between builder, maintainer, and operator is the real bedrock of readiness. No strategy that ignores it is a stable one. This was never just about a fighter jet. It became a signal, a quiet test of whether a nation has the resolve to heal its own industrial past, respect the ingenuity of its own citizens, and define what independence looks like for the next 50 years. What do you think about all this? Tell us in the comments below. See you in the next one.